Be on the right side. There you go.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. This is actually our last fall session, and we will start again in January. So thank you for joining us today. The K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series is designed to help K-12 educators reimagine education with Blackboard's teaching and learning solutions. The K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series harnesses the power of our K-12 community of academic leaders, teachers, and other experts to provide relevant, real-time, on-demand, and ongoing professional development opportunities for educators. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I lead Solutions and Product Marketing for Blackboard's Teaching and Learning Solutions, and I'll be serving as the moderator for the series, alongside with Colleen Smith from our Central Marketing team, and we'll both be helping to answer and manage questions in the chat and QA today. We'll be joining you for the series this fall and next spring. We're always open to new ideas for topics for the series, so please let us know if you have an interest in presenting a future session. You can always email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. Each webinar in the series is recorded, and we know that many times the webinar recordings are more accessible to your teachers than sometimes even the live sessions. So please search for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series playlist on the Blackboard TV YouTube channel, or go to tinyurl.com/bitsK12. You'll also receive the recording and presentation slides within a week of each webinar by email, and you'll receive an invitation to participate in an online professional learning community designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please accept the invitation and participate in the new PLC. As you can see, we have many exciting professional development sessions already lined up for the spring. Please join us again on Monday, January 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Normally we're at 3:30 Eastern Time, but on the 26th we'll be at 4 for the Connected Classroom Blended Learning in High School with Nick Provenzano. And you can go to, very soon, you'll be able to go to bb.blackboard.com/K12bits to register for that session or any session in the spring series. We'll be sending out a communication shortly after the new year to invite you to register for the spring series. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to download the BB K12 Live app so that you can access PD on demand anytime, anywhere. Not only will you find the best sessions from BB World this summer, but every session of the series is added to the app as we record them and capture them. We're very pleased to have Larry Fallon from Arlington Public Schools in Virginia with us today. He'll be taking us through a presentation that he's developed called Rubrics Really Relate. The session will provide, first, an overview of rubrics, of the rubrics generator within Blackboard, how important the process is for students to have a clear understanding of expectations. This allows them to self-assess first, then rewrite, edit their own work before submissions. Rubrics can be general, applying to all written work, or made more specific for discussions, blogs, wikis, journals, uploaded documents, or web-based presentations. The process of discovering an online rubric that meets most of the instructor's needs, the using of the content to create the BB rubric will also be demonstrated, and the discussion will follow. Larry is the Instructional Technology Coordinator for Arlington Public Schools in Virginia. He's been an ITC for APS since 2000. In that role, he develops professional development opportunities for teaching staff at multiple sites and helps implement those with students by modeling in classrooms, and then, as a teaching aid, allowing the classroom teacher to manage the activities with his support. He also coordinates the phased replacement of old technology with new devices. Prior to joining the APS district, he was the Director of Information Technology for Johns Hopkins University at the Rockville, Maryland, and DuPont Circle and Washington, D.C. campuses. His classroom experience was at Sandy Springs Friends School in Olney, Maryland. So welcome, Larry. We're pleased to have you, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise today. I'm going to pass it over to Larry in just a minute, but just some housekeeping first. We'd like these sessions to be as interactive as possible, So whichever one you're more comfortable with, please use the chat or the Q&A. Colleen and I will monitor the chat and QA throughout, and Larry will introduce their questions, or will help address the questions your way at the end of your session, whichever is most appropriate depending on the question. So please don't be shy and use the chat and QA throughout. And with that, I'll hand it over to Larry. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Katie. A lovely introduction as always, and I'm happy to be here and sharing this information with everyone. I have probably a lot more to say than I have to show with this particular presentation, and I'm looking forward to some interactivity, so please let the questions come in the Q&A, and that will move us all along here. Rubrics really relate, and I want to really stress the relate aspect of this, the relationship building aspect of rubrics, and how that can enhance a teacher's communication about a unit plan or a lesson plan as they move from the introduction all the way through to the completion and final grading of those plans. So when I use the word plan, I'm referring to anywhere along the full spectrum of developing a unit to developing a very small portion of that unit within an individual lesson plan or even an individual component of the lesson plan. Rubrics can be extremely fine-grained. They can also be very broad and encompass the entire scope and sequence of the plan. There's a particularly interesting article from the Journal of Effective Teaching. Kenneth Wolf and Ellen Stevens from the University of Colorado at Denver and the Health Sciences Center published this in the Journal of Effective Teaching. There's a set of links at the end of this presentation, and I'm hoping that everyone attending will be able to read this document for themselves. It's, I think it's, I don't remember whether this is the 12-pager or the 35-pager, but it's well worth reading. They go through any number of different scenarios in how to insert a rubric effectively through a wide range of content. There's a rubric for springboard diving, a rubric for giving a speech. They call it performance criteria and levels for a speech rubric. There's a rubric in this document for creating a research project in education. That's one of the more extensive rubrics I've ever seen, with about 11 rows with 3 columns, simply below proficient, proficient, or above proficient. What you're looking at on screen are the highlighted bullet points that are the concluding remarks of these two authors, and they're pretty straightforward, pretty obvious. Rubrics make the learning target more clear, but I want to stress that that makes the learning target more clear for both the teacher and the student, and that the rubric is the device that communicates that clarity and helps develop that clarity. Rubrics guide the instructional design and delivery. That point is really
extended day is the
Okay, just a moment, everyone. Larry let me know that he was going to go on mute for just 1 to 2 minutes when announcements went off in the school building. He mentioned that it was going to be a little too loud to present at that time, so he will be right back.
Okay, hopefully I'm back.
I can hear you again. Thanks, Larry.
Okay. I hope that was the only interruption. I'm sorry. It's extraordinarily loud. Anyway, I was at the second bullet point, Rubrics Guide Instructional Design and Delivery. That guidance is really pointed at the instructor, using the rubric to plot out, plan for how this lesson plan is going to be structured, not only in terms of student activity, but which elements the teacher needs to engage in direct instruction, which elements the students need to participate with solo work, where group work might be inserted. So these first 2 points are really there to help the instructor develop the rubric to produce a document that's going to clearly inform the student on how to best undertake this plan. The third point, rubrics making the assessment process more accurate and fair. As we'll see in a slide that's coming up, a rubric that is intended to help you develop a rubric, being able to have multiple people use your rubric to assess an individual student's work and come to very much the same conclusion is a good sign of an exemplary rubric. Oftentimes, the terminology that we use in the rubric and the terminology that we use in the actual lesson plan delivery, when we're instructing the students on how to do what we're asking them to do, on how to accomplish the learning goals that are intended for the lesson plan, we go back and forth using different jargon. We go back and forth using different ways to express what we want them to do and what we want them to learn. It's important in the creation of the rubric that we dissolve that obstacle, that we remove that barrier, so that what we are making clear is the expectation and how they'll be assessed in the level that they perform that expectation. These 2 authors make the final important point that rubrics have the potential to advance the learning of students of color, first-generation students, and those from non-traditional settings. I think this very much goes back to looking at the terms and jargon that we use, and that in my experience working with a lot of alternative education programs, this can often be that point at which our expectations come into conflict with our ability to communicate in terms and with phrases that the English language learners.
Bus riders and car riders are dismissed. I repeat, bus riders and car riders are dismissed. Have a great day, Ashlyn.
Okay, sorry, I think that was the last one. These students need this kind of communication tool pointing to the processes, procedures, behaviors, and learning goals, probably more than your average student who has been through American education from day one and has grown to have a generalized understanding of what a classroom teacher expects them to do when they say write a report or do some research or, you know, accomplish or participate in this discussion group online, whatever it is. So rubrics establishing this common view shared by the teacher and the student as to what is expected of them and what their practices and processes will be is the best way to have every student produce something at least adequate, if not exemplary. And if they don't, there's going to be something that the teacher can point to that the student should have already understood to help them understand what the reason that they got a lower grade. This has become very important in teaching in Arlington, that there is clear documentation for the student, for the teacher to communicate to the student, and for the teacher to be able to show the parent what has been communicated to the student if there's ever any question about the grade that was assessed for the work. So, moving along to a rubric for rubrics. This is another link at the end of this presentation, and I will spend some more time with it. It looks like the formatting got a little smashed together there, and I'm afraid I don't think I have the rights to fix it. It's under the large 1, 2, 3, and 4, where you see 0 to 10 needs improvement, 11 to 15 equals workable, 16 to 20 equals solid, good, and 21 to 24 equals exemplary. That should be above the line where the 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. So the scoring is not so much the important part of this rubric. The rows and some discussion or some information from me regarding my view on what they're trying to get across here might be valuable. I won't read everything to you, but the clarity of criteria is clearly unacceptable if the criteria being assessed are inappropriate or have significant overlap. I think the overlap is really something that we need to be watching as we're building our rubrics. If we keep talking about grammar and spelling in multiple rows of the rubric, if there's one level of assessment of the grammar and spelling for a first draft, for a revised draft, and for a final draft, that has to be very clear. It's very confusing to a student to think that grammar and spelling might be assessed with very low impact on their grade in one portion of the rubric, and then have to be the ones to understand that that low expectation is not carried throughout. So extreme clarity in elements that overlap. If there's a good distinction between the different rows of what you're looking at in a project, that's much more appropriate and a much better rubric. And if each criteria is fully distinct and clearly delineated, then that's an exemplary rubric. So that distinction between levels carries through in a rubric for a writing assignment that might have those different components. It might be worthwhile to develop a separate rubric for a first draft, another rubric for the revised draft. And that revision might include some other procedures, such as having peer review, and include in that review rubric how those students might interact to assess each other's work and give each of the members of the group some clear instructions about what they're looking for in assessing the original work in order to produce the revised document. And then, of course, the final document having its own set of standards for grammar and spelling, for original content, for references, for formatting, those kinds of things. The reliability of scoring is what I was alluding to earlier, where cross-scoring among faculty and or students resulting in significant differences would point to an unacceptable rubric. This also could be a good point to get everyone thinking about the value of having a teacher-student discussion at the beginning, at the introduction of a unit plan, where the class as a group develops the rubric. This is especially helpful if there is group work involved and a clear understanding of how group members are to interact. What are the roles? Does everyone have to do everything? Do people take on roles? Is one person the technology person and another person the idea person? Where does that go? And how do people rotate through those roles? And then developing that group kind of mind process in developing the rubric should result in a general agreement between different scorers when using the rubric. That can also be tested by handing the rubric to a mentor teacher and handing them a student submission that you know how you've scored and see how they score it. You can then hand that same student submission to a teaching assistant or just a grader if you have those available to you, and see how they score that same document or that same student project work. So exemplary rubric would have a cross-scoring of assignments using a single rubric that results in a consistent agreement among scorers. And you can obviously see the advantage of that, and that points to the successful work that was done in communicating the rubric to the students when that can be accomplished. The next row is clarity of expectations and guidance to learners. There are people who create rubrics for their own use to help them plan the unit or lesson activity, and then don't share it with the learners. I have to say I find that almost reprehensible that the teacher has developed a set of expectations and is not letting the student use that to gauge their own actions, to gain their own degree of participation in the project. So acceptable as the rubric is shared, provides some idea of the assignment expectations. We keep scaling that up. The rubric is used to explicitly introduce an assignment and guide the learners. And then it's exemplary when the rubric serves as the primary reference to do just that. Supportive metacognition and awareness of learning. This also spawns from the learners not seeing or knowing of the rubric. Rubric is shared but no further reference is made to it. That can be confusing to the students because they don't really understand or see the value of the rubric if it's not being referenced relatively often. So moving up to the exemplary, regularly reference and use to help learners identify the skills and knowledge they are developing throughout the course, throughout the assignments. That does indicate an exemplary rubric. Engagement of learners in rubric development and use. let's jump right to exemplary there. The faculty and learners are jointly responsible for design of rubrics, and learners use them in peer and or self-evaluation. I think this can be a tremendous opportunity to get students fully engaged in the content at the very beginning, at the introduction of a new plan, of the beginning of a new unit, at the especially in the midst of the unit when new practices, procedures, or technology is being integrated and used with the plan. So we're scaling down the broader plan to a rubric that focuses on the narrower implementation of a lesson plan within a unit plan. That kind of engagement, that kind of discussion between the teacher and the student can often be well worth the time as we're moving forward from, especially as we're moving forward from a lecture delivered, something like what I'm doing right now, to a flipped or blended approach where a lot more individual responsibility is being required of the students to fully participate in the learning. So that kickoff where the teachers and the students are jointly responsible for the design of the rubric is a great way to do that. Moving forward to the Blackboard rubric tool. I haven't seen any questions, and I'm not hearing from anybody, so I'm just going to forge ahead here. I'm very excited about the rubric tool, and many of my teachers use Blackboard a lot and have not really discovered the rubric tool. I think some recent improvements have made this a much better tool. Katie or Colleen, do the participants see my mouse moving on the screen when I'm pointing at things?
No, when you're sharing slides, they're not seeing your mouse.
Okay, thank you. So I did highlight a few things here. The almost unreadable text there is me giving my teachers instructions to use this assignment to go into their Blackboard course and find a rubric tool and create a rubric. And it's pointing out that the default after, this is in the bottom row where the yellow circle is in the right corner of the screen. That indicates to the teacher, once they've produced the rubric, that it's been shared with the students who come to participate in an assignment. For some reason that I'm not going to stress too much, Blackboard, in its wisdom, has decided to have the default be no. There are two choices other than no: yes and share the scores, and yes and do not share the scores. So possibly that's the logic, that you want the teachers to make a clear and affirmative decision as to whether or not they're going to show the scores. I think it's very important to show the students how their work will be scored. So if I were, in charge of Blackboard, I would probably just have rubrics default to yes and show the score, and just keep teachers informed that that's the situation, that's what they'll be working with. So within this, you've got all of the tools for the assignment information that you would have in any text editor in Blackboard. So this assignment information could contain quite a bit of information regarding the unit or lesson plan, and then the rubric is attached to that. I took the time to create new rubrics because I wanted to make sure that in the most recent releases I would have the most recent screenshots. So I produced this just in the last couple of days, and the main thing I want to point out is the ease of use, especially in conjunction with your web browser and all of the many, many rubrics that are available out there on the web. And I can demonstrate some of those in a few minutes. This is basically the first step. You move through. I seem to be missing one slide, or maybe it got rearranged. Let's see. Okay, so sorry for jumping around. This is the rubric detail after you've scrolled down from simply creating this rubric. So instead of scrolling down, I'm advancing a slide. It's very open. It's very simple, and it's also very easy to edit every one of these components. So you see this is the column is formatting, organization, and grammar. The rows are formatting, organization, and grammar. The columns are novice, competent, and proficient. That could be quite good. It could be very useful for a simple writing project or any number of things. However, the terminology might be more clear if you edit those to be more meaningful to your students and the project at hand. And that's quite easily done. The down arrow pops up a window where you can type in anything you like, and you can click Save, and it replaces it. If you need more rows, you see at the top center there's a yellow circle around Add Row. I've added a row and decided that I would call it Advanced Understanding. And that's circled. So you see the fourth row that I've added. And also notice that it has a 0 grading weight. It will only balance the weights when you go down to the bottom of the screen and circle Balance Weights. And then you can see the third column on the right of the screen that I've edited all of those rows. They now read Participation, Initial Content, Response Relevance, and Outside the Box. I love the outside the box aspect of discussion boards, and so I always include that in my rubric for a discussion board. So this is a rubric to help teachers assess discussion board content. So next slide, you see this is all completely filled in. This may surprise you, but filling in all 12 of those fields took me about 10 minutes because I copied and pasted from an existing rubric that I had developed a few years ago.
Mr. Johnson, please call the main office. Mr. Johnson, please call the main office.
I apologize again. The announcements here can sometimes be unexpected. So working with a rubric in this fashion allows us to link any teacher who participates in this online professional development activity that I've set up for them will be able to read through my rubric, understand my rationale for how I assess the work that they do. I can also change the weighting. If the response relevance is the most important thing, I can up that to 35 or 40% by reducing the weight of some other aspect, like outside the box or participation. And I make it clear with my teachers that when they are participating in a discussion board, that everyone's participation is expected, that the initial content, the scoring of the initial content will be simply that, me looking at their initial post, the thread that they have created, and that the response relevance is me looking at how they responded to at least 2 other people. So some of this is made clear in that very small text that's very difficult to read on the slide that we're looking at, and most of it is made clear in the instructions that I give for the participants of my training. Outside the box is something that I think is really important for professional development of teachers. I'm not so certain it's always what we want to encourage our students to do, because sometimes they can be really outside the box, and it can be somewhat of a challenge to rein them back in and try to keep them on content, especially when they feel really committed to their outside-the-box idea and want to spend a whole lot of time justifying why that's an important point, even when it might be very much off point. So I do this a lot with professional development with teachers. I don't advocate it so much for discussion boards with students unless creativity is really what you're looking for. And then outside the box can be something that they look forward to and get excited about. As we look at these links, you can see what each link relates to in terms of the slides, and I've made the Google Doc where I have the original of the rubric for discussion boards available to the public if you have this link. If you don't, if you have any problems gaining access to that Google Doc, please feel free to email me. I believe my email is on the first slide, but it's larry.fallon@apsva.us. So I think what might be worthwhile would be for me to now do the application sharing and look at especially this Teacher Planet Rubrics for Teachers. There's a login. There may be a login. So let me try this application sharing, and I'm going to try to find my there we go. Katie, and can you give me some feedback? Are you seeing the Teacher Planet website?
Yep.
Okay. So I find this useful. There's rubric templates, there's a rubric maker, but if you are a Blackboard user, I very much encourage you to use Blackboard's Rubric Maker because it threads everything together so well with your other assignments. The samplers, okay, maybe that's because I didn't log in. Let's see. So these are fully usable in terms of copying and pasting into a Blackboard rubric creation, developing a rubric for Blackboard. It can be a very good baseline that you then add the specifics relating to your content, to your curriculum area, to the process that you want students to go through. This one has authenticity, academic rigor, assessment sponsors, deep learning, and improved instruction. There are, all of them are headed with beginning, developing, emerging, and aspiring. This can be a really good rubric for helping to channel students into the next level of activity for them. Once they've done work that is clearly they've clearly accomplished the beginning stage, you can point to the developing stage and help them come up with a plan to do activities, to submit work that shows growth along the scale of beginning, developing, emerging, and aspiring, and again in all of these categories. So this process can be extremely fast. Control-C to copy what you've highlighted, Alt-Tab to go back to your tab in another browser with the Blackboard Rubric creation tool in front of you, click in that box, and then Control-V to paste. So you can move back and forth very quickly, and then once it's in Blackboard, you can add those elements that are specific to your unit and lesson plans. There are a tremendous number of resources. I didn't make an exhaustive list at all. Edutopia, EduCreations, I'm sure many of you have lists of your own where you can go to reference already developed rubrics. I do highly encourage you to cite your work and to model that behavior for your students, so that somewhere in the information about the assignment you have credited where you got the baseline for your rubric. Certainly you can write the rubric on your own, and then I highly encourage you to offer it to other teachers on other websites so that we can all share the perspective and the detail and the motivation that can come from becoming a really good rubric writer. I think the Teacher Planet site, it's free. It doesn't, you do get some ads, as you can see, but all it requires is an email address. So I thought I had done this and it would remember me, but there's my email. There are a lot of other teacher tools, teacher freebies, I did a social studies rubric search, and the first listing is on rubrics for teachers. And and there's a generic classroom rubric, a listening rubric, a museum exhibit rubric, scavenger hunt, travel brochure, all relating to social studies. So all of these can be worked with and made your own. So I highly encourage you, or highly recommend that you spend some time searching the web for rubrics that are meaningful to you. And as I said a few minutes ago, if you create them wholly on your own, find a way to share them with other teachers. This is the way we develop a professional learning community. Blackboard has been a tremendous professional learning community for me, and I think that's just about my my presentation for today. This last slide shows a word cloud that was developed in a professional development session that we did regarding rubrics, and it represents the word cloud from a discussion group on rubrics. I think it's very interesting to look at some of the third and fourth tier terms like informs, describes, determines, communicating, demonstrating, communicated, relationship is in there. It really points to what the full implementation of rubrics can do for a teacher, for the teacher's students, and communicating everything that's important about the content and the lessons that get students to understand and absorb the content that they need. So thanks for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions or go back, if needed, into Blackboard and demonstrate anything live if you'd like. How's it going with everybody out there?
Thank you so much, Larry. This has been great. There aren't any questions in the chat at the moment, so I'm going to ask the group if you could enter your questions now in the chat or the QA. Would love to see, and I'll start with asking a question, Larry. I know you do a lot of professional development in the district, and I know this word cloud is all about discussion in PD. Have you ever actually used the rubric to assess projects submitted by faculty in a PD session? Maybe I missed it. Maybe you gave an example earlier. But I thought you could maybe share some information on how you've used it in PD.
Yes, I'm happy you asked. I do try to model everything I ask my teachers to do. So I felt that it is important to actually assess, and that can be a touchy situation. Anyone out there who does professional development with teachers will know that if you embarrass a teacher in front of the group of their peers, you'll have a hard time getting them to come back to your next professional development offering. So one of the things that I've done is to really focus on the exemplary, and to really, and then to maybe ratchet it down to the moderately. And the people who can, teachers are all very smart people, and usually mostly just stressed for time. And they can then self-assess, looking at the teachers that I have pointed out have done exemplary work, and the next scale down, to be able to compare and self-assess what was lacking in their submission. And many times I get emails from those teachers that I didn't point out who have gone back and done the revision, have done the rewriting to help, because they then see that it wouldn't have taken them that much more time. Or even if it might have taken them that much more time, they want to take the time to show me that they've integrated what I've asked them to do into their thinking and that they're able to do it. So it's very important, as I said, to not embarrass teachers, especially in front of their peers. Sometimes it takes, offering to spend some one-on-one time face-to-face, especially since more of my professional development has gone to online and, using Collaborate. There is some degree of face-to-face and personal communication there, but it's not the same as sitting down beside a teacher at their desk when they have a free period or a planning period and walking through a process or discussing conceptually the value of that process. So I think that answers your question. I can go further if you'd like.
Great, no, thank you. Let's see if any other questions came in. Okay, there's a question from Marla Walker. I'm sure you encourage teachers to share, but do you have a method you recommend for them to share within Blackboard? I'll pass the question to you, but I will certainly mention to Marla that rubrics can be shared through the content collection, certainly. But Larry, can you answer how you share, what method you use for sharing in Arlington?
Sure. Each school has an organization. So every elementary school has an organization, every high school, every middle school. And all of the teachers are enrolled in those organizations as participants. So we create assignment activities within those organizations that students don't have access to, only teachers have access to. So this assignment that I've just created on creating a rubric, that's going to go out to a number of elementary schools that have requested more professional development on creating rubrics. I've modified it from a similar assignment that I had already created for a high school organization. So within that framework, the teachers within a more local unit can share their work either through attaching a file to a discussion board or through the wiki or where they can insert documents. And so there are multiple ways within Blackboard for teachers who are colleagues within a Blackboard organization to share their work. And go ahead and I'll let you take care of the broader Blackboard organization.
Great.
Katie?
From Ryan King. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Have you been able to establish any school or department-wide rubrics that can be used to assess similar projects? If so, were they teacher-generated or district-generated?
Right now, everything that's happening with rubrics is teacher-generated. We are working, meaning myself as the instructional technology coordinator for a number of schools and several other instructional technology coordinators within Arlington, are working with our curriculum supervisors at the central office to help them consider a district-wide rubric for a research paper, or a district-wide rubric for some strands of, in Virginia, what are called the standards of learning for the writing process, so that persuasive writing has a consistent rubric. But that hasn't happened yet. And we hope to be moving forward on that during, the later part of this school year, so that by the end of 2015, we can take those district-wide rubrics in an electronic format and show them to the teachers in those content areas, and then ask them what about these would work for you the way you teach research projects, or what about these would have to be modified for the way you teach persuasive writing. So hopefully getting more collaborative work done in this area between the teachers in the classrooms and the curriculum supervisors is one of the goals of the instructional technology coordinators. And trying to leverage that process to get both the teacher in the classroom and the curriculum supervisor collaborating using instructional technology.
Great. Great, okay. Well, not seeing any other questions at the moment. Now, please keep the questions coming. With that, I'm going to move forward a couple slides just to close us out, but we're still watching for questions in the chat in case there are additional questions for Larry. But I wanted to thank Larry for a great presentation today. As always, you presented in the spring, so we were thrilled to have you back this fall. So thanks to everyone today for participating in this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. Again, we're lining up sessions for the spring. We're in the final stages of that, so speak up if you'd like to present, have topics you'd like to see. You can always reach me on Twitter at @1KatieGallagher or by email, certainly. In the next week, you'll receive the recording from today and the presentation slides in PDF form. You'll also be receiving that invitation to participate in the online PLC designed to augment the series and provide that avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So accept it and participate. Again, join us again after a nice long break on Monday, January 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Connected Classroom, Blended Learning in High School with Nick Provenzano. And soon you'll be able to go to bb.blackboard.com/K12vits to register for any spring session series. Again, look for our communication in early January. That registration for the spring is not quite live, but we will have it ready soon. So thanks to everyone. Let me check one more time in the Q&A in the chat. I'm not seeing any additional questions, but thank you so much, Larry, for your presentation today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thanks, everyone, for participating. Have a great day, and if we don't connect before, have a great holiday.
You too. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.